started.
Is it different from before?
No, but I don't know how to use it.
Oh, okay.
So, Kendrick,
The
operator's different.
yeah. I don't know how to
John
make
relies on good people to do this work for him.
I know a lot of things, how to get us on YouTube is not one of them.
You know who to call, so that was good. All right.
Started.
Is it different? No, it's a little bit of lag.
Yep, so that means it's live streaming.
Are we gonna hear that lag while we're,
No, this is really me.
oh, okay.
Now, so YouTube has been closed down, so it's now beaming to the public.
Okay, so this is actually live, so I don't have to do anything when we start the meeting, it's already going.
It's already going.
And
All you
then
need
I
to
have
do
when I click off is just end.
is just end.
That part I can do.
And then, since this is my account, I appreciate if you just shut me down.
Oh, yeah, I'll log you out. All right, so end and log you out.
Yeah.
Got it, right? Hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, me
Thanks,
too.
buddy. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
guys.
All right.
All right, so since we don't have Ken, am I gonna do a roll call for him?
I can do
That's fine.
either way, I don't mind doing
Let's see if we've got anybody on the Zoom
Yeah.
yet.
it. No, Kat sent us an email, and she wasn't gonna be able to make it tonight, so.
Okay, so Cat's
And
out,
we know that
Arnold's out.
Arnold's out, so hopefully we get a four, otherwise the four of us are gonna stay in the chair. Aaron's here. And I wasn't 100% sure if you guys had gotten the agenda either,
All the
because
kudos today.
he sent all that out. I didn't get the link. He forgot to.
Oh,
So
no.
I made the agenda just in case you guys didn't get it.
I got it, and I mean, there wasn't a report.
Yeah, I was
No, I didn't have time to do the reports. I'm just gonna do it live like I used to do, and Aaron will do part of it also.
I just had the cover, I didn't have the backup, like we
Okay.
normally would get.
Did you have the minutes of it? You should just say agenda minutes and.
Yeah, and then the operations.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get it.
Well, actually, no, it's not even operations.
Apparently,
No,
one
that's
came out
not-
of the
Rob's
restroom,
gonna
there's a
do it, so,
restroom right there,
uh,
checkpoint.
Rob will be in on the camera, so
Or
Well,
gates.
you're calling.
he's calling.
And there's a
He's gotta-
restroom right
he's gotta
there.
order.
She came out of the restroom, pulled
I guess
the
he's
pistol
not
out of her
so
purse,
hopeful that when.
Shot it into the
people
air.
get here, I'm gonna sit here and know it.
which everyone scattered.
Right.
Um,
I don't know how this
And
works.
then,
It's live on YouTube.
and she was just arrested. I mean,
It says people are in the line.
she stood there and waited to be arrested.
Jeez.
It's all public area though, right?
Thanks, what this say?
So before screen.
Before screening, but it was at the checkpoint.
All right, anyway, how are you, gentlemen? Sorry.
Good, how are you?
Scrambling a little bit
I think we're
here.
better than you so far.
Yeah, well, you're in person.
I'm here.
I haven't seen you
alive and
stand
well.
up yet, but I'm
No,
assuming you got your chair.
Yeah, I ran into Doug coming down the hallway, coming out of the
I
restroom.
caught him sprinting down the hall.
Yeah, but you know, it's funny, so I lifted this thing and carried it from my office to here. Oh my God, this is heavy.
Wow.
So I don't have the back strength back here yet at all, much as I think I do. So sitting is fine, laying down obviously is
We're
fine.
keeping an eye on.
Keep walking too much or standing too much is a little, start to tip over, but doing all right. Start my physical therapy on Monday for the next like 8 weeks or so.
I'm sure that'll
What
be
an
fun.
adventure that's gonna be.
Yeah. So, interestingly, the same therapist at the same clinic that I had when I broke my leg back in 2018.
So you're known down there,
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah, I was in the system.
So they've
Just
already,
gave him my new insurance card.
yeah.
I was like, is Troy still here? Yeah,
He's on- he's on
Troy
the
to be a
BOGO.
therapist? I'm like, sure.
He's on the Bojo plan.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping I get a discount.
Alright, might be the right place.
Hi, Carol, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Come on in.
Great.
It's been a long time since we've seen you.
That's,
In person,
Yeah,
usually we don't even
absolutely.
see you online, we usually just see your,
yeah.
see and hear your voice.
A voice, yeah.
Sure.
I'm Jennifer Nizer.
Hi, sir, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And we've met
Yeah, we
before,
were
but
here
good
on
to
the
see you again,
introductory, yeah,
yeah.
nice to see you
This
again.
is Mark Bechtel, he's my boss, he's the Public Works Operations
Hi, nice
Division
to meet you.
Manager.
Nice to meet
And Aaron Eisen is our Airport Security Manager.
you. Right on, nice to meet you.
Lieutenant Colonel Edgecombe, good to see you in person.
Yeah.
We're actually streaming.
Where's your badge?
live, so we have to Be careful.
Did you get
That's a good looking shirt, I'm
And
sure.
Well,
we need
actually,
one
I
more
know
for
that I'm
quorum, so.
I see a lot of helicopters
I mean, I can go.
Yeah.
I can
forming
grab
up
the
across the way there.
Yeah, it's a 9-week class, so we're doing our thing.
Yeah, you get to do night stuff.
Trying to get noise complaints, right, yeah.
Yeah, summertime's the worst when it does get dark.
Yeah, cool.
It's a drag.
Was
Yeah,
that 25 bucks?
No, it's like 50, but this time.
No, it was during COVID. We had a.
That's right.
We,
came in,
yeah.
you
I
and
think
John and I.
I took over February of
Okay. He said he was gonna start
21.
over at your place, the day
It's
before.
Almost 2
Thanksgiving.
years, yeah.
So folks in
Yeah.
flight
Almost 3
operations
years.
have them. I think some of the facilities folks have them, some of the.
No,
senior
I'm sorry,
staff
22,
have
February
them.
22.
But I haven't
think
had
John,
any
you and I met here.
Yes,
Yeah.
right,
Sort of.
binder. and-
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I can get
Kind of
to
the-
where I need to go
I think that was
without
one of
reading
our
it,
first
so
in-person,
it hasn't been
we're
a
not supposed to get
need.
together in person,
Yeah.
but we can
And I
if we
guess
all
they're
agree.
talking about
So,
doing something
Thankfully, we're back to
differently. I was gonna
normal.
ask
Yeah.
if they had,
Ultimately, I think so.
but they were talking some kind of crazy technology solution for security.
Who's doing what to do? Oh,
Oh,
Just a retina scan.
I was,
for you.
yeah,
this guy over here, he's got all kinds of great ideas. We're gonna try and virtual fence your entire
that,
facility.
exactly,
Is that
that's
what
what,
you're
that's the rumor I heard.
Then we'll know, then we'll know what you're doing all day long, John.
Right. I don't have a window office, so like,
I
you
know.
can't tell. I'm-
Yeah, when they toured me around and I saw where you are, I'm like, John, don't rate a window office.
I had a window office, but then they built all this stuff around it.
Uh,
I've been there so long, that it's like the,
Got built in.
I don't know if you remember like the Looney Tunes where they had the one house, old fifties place, and then all the sky rises.
Oh, yeah,
That's what my house.
and they refused to sell, so it just stayed. in the
Exactly.
office, yeah.
He's like the grandpa from Up, the movie Up.
Yeah,
Your office did look like it had been well lived in.
it's been there for a while,
How many years have you been?
25.
5 years now. You've been here how long? City?
So you said 29 years.
Yeah.
So so Portland, 6 years before that, so
Hmm.
I'm not even sure why I'm still working.
That's a lot of public.
Other than it's not Medicare age yet, so.
Yeah, well, that and you went and had a family,
Well,
you
yeah,
sent kids off to college and stuff.
2 kids in college.
Yeah. We're gonna keep you working for a while. I think we got about 3 minutes left here.
And I love my job.
Yeah.
And now that I have the airport, it's even better.
More funner. Yeah.
More fun.
We got a shiny new toy to play with. It's so funny. Have people texting me like, it's friends of mine who live in Burbank who came up a couple weeks ago because their son goes to Orlando. Well, he's flying out tomorrow to go home for Thanksgiving. So they're texting. I said, well, we told them that to expect long lines and a huge, complicated terminal experience. So I said, well, tell them to drop my name and that'll get them through TSA security.
Yeah.
We've had some interesting ones already though. We had somebody try and, it was in their check bag, but they had a loaded weapon. So our local law enforcement lady had to go and clear the chamber and all that stuff. We had our first can't have a badge guy yesterday. Aaron had declined his
Oh.
request for a badge to service aircraft because we don't want him on our airfield.
Got it.
So yeah, so it's not been dull the first 6 weeks or so.
I can imagine.
So,
Gotta
well,
shake out all the loose stuff.
yeah, exactly. In the Navy, they call it sea trials.
Hmm.
You have shakeout crews. You go out and run
Gonna
that
tie it
thing.
to the building here somewhere. or-
We need a yard arm. We don't hang people from the yard arm anymore. So we need a good yard. Yeah, shakeout cruises were fun because they just take the ship out to sea and then they just high speed everything, high speed turns and hard stops and they get everything, just make sure it's not gonna come apart and everything does what it's supposed to do. So you get to see it in ways you never see it when there's an air wing on board.
Yeah.
So those are always fun. They wait till, heavy seas, we're gonna do heavy sea trials today. So now you're bobbing up and down the waves at high speed and crashing.
What carrier were you on?
I was on the USS Ranger.
Ranger.
Yeah.
My brother was on the Kitty Hospital.
Yeah, so they were stationed in San Diego with us.
He was on it when they were stationed in Japan.
Oh, in Japan, okay. Yeah, when I was on the Ranger, the Independence was in Japan.
Yeah, they replaced the Independence.
Okay.
I believe.
And my combat time was during Desert Storm, in the Persian Gulf right off the coast of Kuwait, because we were the shallowest draft carrier, a little bit older than some of the other carriers. So we were, I don't know, 20, 30 miles off the coast of Kuwait.
Close enough.
Close enough. See all the burning oil wells.
Yeah.
And
It must be quite an experience to cruise with this carrier group.
yeah. Yeah, carrier strike group. In fact, I have a picture in my office. It's the only time in naval history they had 4 aircraft carriers get together for one picture. So it was post hostilities. And we were getting replaced by the
Seems
Roosevelt.
crazy now.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, I know. Yeah, they've never done more than 3 cents. Typically, they only do 2, but we had all 4. So it was the Midway, which is now a museum in San Diego. Midway and the Ranger were in the front, then the America and the Teddy Roosevelt were in the rear. All 4
But
of us.
only one of
Our
those
battle group
are going.
steamed for about 15 minutes and then,
Yeah.
and that was it. But they did all the photo stuff, and so
Yeah,
I
it was
got
on the Midway. We did that, visited
Yeah,
that earlier in April.
interesting to do.
One of the Roosevelt's left operating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
the
one
others are
that
long.
was a news plan.
Interestingly, so I haven't been to the Midway Museum, but Joey, my ops manager, went and he sent me a picture. And so the equipment that I worked on is now in museum form. It was early, it was pre-GPS.
Yeah.
Oh, in the radio rooms or which
No,
one?
it was inertial navigation systems.
Ah,
So it was the roll, pitch and yaw of the ship.
Uh-huh.
And so aircraft could find their way back to the ship after they launched.
It's kind of a handy feature.
It was kind of a handy feature. And this is all this is late 80s, early 90s. And so now but it's a big, huge mainframe computer that you had to put in the code in Octal. So I could do coding in Octal.
Oh.
So it's all in a museum on the Midway now.
Yeah.
Joey's like, is this what you did?
it was really
That's
cool,
funny.
and very good docents.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
Super knowledgeable guys who were happy to
And
explain.
all the wiring was stapled to the wall because it wasn't built into the ship. That was it.
I have 3 people waiting.
Okay,
I was
yeah,
paying
let's-
attention.
yeah, let's get, I guess we're ready to go at 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Respect everybody's time here and get through things.
Yeah. Keith set this up for me before he left. Sorry, everybody. I was a bit delayed here. I got distracted. My apologies. Everybody should be coming in now.
Literally telling war stories.
Literally telling more stories. Yeah. We have Counselor Nishioka. Chris is online. Hi, Chris.
How's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yep. And with you, we have a quorum now. You are
Yes.
our 4th.
You are a 4th.
Mike is the only one we haven't heard from, so I don't know. He may pop in or he may join us live. Okay, we are actually already streaming on YouTube because somebody was kind enough to come in and do that for me. So we are live.
There you go.
Start
Now
the
we
meeting.
call the meeting to order. Yeah, as John said, we're being recorded live and live streaming on YouTube. I know that Arnaud won't be able to attend, and I believe Kat Pence indicated that she won't be able to attend. But let's go ahead and do a roll call. We'll start with Doug Brenizer.
I'm here.
Kat Pence is absent. Colonel Edgecombe.
Present.
Chris Burkholder.
Present.
Mike Morrow is absent for now. Arnaud is absent and John Foley is present. All right, so moving on. Has everyone received and reviewed the agenda? And are there any additions needed? And if not, would one of you be so kind as to move to approve the agenda as distributed?
So moved.
All right, and is there a
I
second?
second.
All right, perfect. Do we need to do a roll call vote? I can see Chris's hand if he raises it.
You can do it.
Your meeting.
Well, let's just, all in favor of approving the agenda as distributed, raise your hands, or aye?
Aye.
Unanimously approved. All right, has everyone had it on the next agenda item, the approval of minutes? Has everyone received and had a chance to review the minutes from the September 20th meeting?
Yes.
Any corrections needed to those? All right, if not, again, if I could get someone to move the approved minutes as distributed.
I'll make that move.
All right, we have a second. All right, then just like before, let's, if you're in favor of approving the minutes as distributed, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
And we have unanimous approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Awesome. Let's see, public comment. We are still limiting in-person participation to government staff and board members. Do we get any comments prior to the meeting from the public?
No comments.
All right, then I think we can continue on with the reports. And I'm glad to see that Rob Broyhill's here. Do you have a report for us for the tower?
Sure. Hello. I apologize for my camera. It's displaying upside down, so I'm going to skip that right now. I'm not sure what's happening.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm not sure with the Zoom it does that to me at times versus the Teams meetings, but yeah. So I'm going to go back to July here. So our traffic count from July to October was 18,421. That's just a little bit different from last year at this time. It's a little shy of 1,000 operations. And with that said, up to year to date from January to October, we're shy about 1,200 operations there. So we're kind of staying steady there. Just a little shy than what was normal last year. Busiest day was 336 operations September. We had a kind of an uptick in operations September. And then with the mandatory occurrence reports, we had a few since August. I'll start with August 13th. We had a Skyhawk in flight with the medical emergency. The pilot got turned around. He departed Salem. He got turned around. It was pretty warm. And he was experienced some heat-related illnesses, and he got down and landed safely without incident. And Foam 6 or ARF responded to them at that point. Then September 2nd, we had a H-61 of our guard helicopters reported an in-flight emergency, a light indicator on their engine 1, and the pilot crew also landed without incident on that one. September 12th, we had a Mooney report inbound to Salem with flight control issues. He reported minor difficulties, which he then reported major difficulties. So we changed that to an alert 2. We went ahead and responded to ARF on alert 1 originally. The pilot was able to land without incident, and Foam 6 went out there and met them as well. September 23rd, one of our life flight helicopters departed Salem Hospital and got tagged with a green laser somewhere in the vicinity of the departure area of the Salem Hospital. We were able to get the coordinates from the pilot, and we went ahead and informed local law enforcement. We haven't heard back anything from that. So October 8th, we had a aircraft landing 3-4, did a ground loop. And he left the runway about the 2,000-foot remaining marker. He didn't hit any lights or equipment. The pilot was able to taxi back onto the runway and taxiway, and then he gave us a call and he reported no damage to the aircraft. October 18th, we had a 152 report of the rough running engine south of the field. We had him make a straight in 3-4 and did an alert 1 with him as well. And then ARF responded and he landed without incident as well. So that was great. Then October 29th, we had a tug pushing an aircraft out right around the Salem area. And he entered taxiway Charlie without clearance and immediately made a 180 back into the non-moving area. So we had to chat with him about that. So that's the instance we've reported since August, I guess. The new tower site survey was completed back in August. Looks like it's for waiting approval and funding. What I've been told, there's 30 going to be built, 30 towers going to be built by 2030. And we made the list because our tower hit 50 years old this year. So only drawback I've heard is there's a possible hold for a Native American artifact survey on that one. So I haven't heard any updates on where we're sitting with that. So that's pretty much what I got for you tonight.
Thank you very much. Can I ask one question? Just curious, with those kind of green laser, the laser incidences, do those ever result in any kind of enforcement? Or are they just too hard to track down?
We get it a lot.
Yeah.
So we report them. Yeah, they never get caught. It's kids in the backyard that hear the helicopter go by and they laser us. So actually, we guys had one last 2 nights ago up by McMinnville.
Yeah, we rarely get the coordinates. So if we get coordinates, at least we can let local law enforcement know about. There's somebody in the area they can go out there and at least take a look. But majority of the time, we don't, get, it's just areas, which is very difficult. So.
May I ask a question? Is the tower, that's great news that you're getting a new tower, it sounds like. Is that still going to go on the other side next in between Garmin and the guard facility? Is that still the plan?
Yep, that's the location. We had 2 locations. So actually there was 5 originally, and we narrowed it down to 2, and they were both on the east side. The site 3 was a little bit closer north of that area, but it is buttoned up against your area there at the guard compound. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the tower chief? All right, if not, Then we can move on to the airport manager's report. John, you got something? for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do, and I'm going to split my time tonight with our airport security manager who's seated behind me. So we can talk about security. I missed the September meeting, but I understand that Mark did the yeoman's job of filling in for me and providing some updates. So I appreciate that. And understand that you did are able to do a terminal tour, some of the
Yeah,
TSA
that was-
facilities, and maybe you were here for that. But
I was out of town. I
if you're
remember that,
interested,
yeah.
we can take you around and show you what it looks like now.
Cool.
So if you saw the terminal prior and you've seen the terminal now, it's a big difference. In fact, we're in the middle of our FAA annual safety and certification inspection today, tomorrow, and Friday, and they went and looked through the terminal. They were here in January. She was amazed at the difference. So, yep, we're up and running. In terms of current projects, the airport beacon replacement is complete. I think we mentioned in September that it would happen in late September. It did. It's a nice new bright LED beacon. I've received a lot of positive feedback on that. So that is going, part of the reason we waited to install a new one is we wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to conflict with the new tower location if they wanted the beacon light to be relocated, but that's a whole separate siting process. And so what the FAA decided to do is they're just going to shield the beacon for the period of time that it goes past the control tower, make sure there's no impact to Rob and his staff. So
So is your intent not to put it on the new tower? Because I think I mentioned to you that in our master plan, our facility is going to be built out with, and it will encompass that location.
Yeah.
Right where it's at. It will have to move.
yeah, it won't go on top of the new tower. The FAA doesn't prefer to do that.
Okay.
There's absolutely no reason, no other option. So when the time comes, there may be a beacon relocation, but at that point, hopefully the new tower will be constructed.
Something, okay.
We haven't even cited where a new beacon would go, and it's not even so much just the tower. We have to make sure we don't put a beacon up that now shines in everybody's living rooms up in the South Salem Hills and those sorts of things. So it's a pretty complicated process.
Yeah, okay.
We didn't want to leave the beacon unusable for that period of time. So master plan update, that's besides commercial service, probably the topic of conversation for the most part. Chapter 3, which is aviation forecast, that's still being finalized with input from the FAA. That's dragged a little bit just because of the launch of commercial air service. And so we're trying to understand from the FAA how they want us to forecast out operations and employments and those things without really having much of a history. So we're pretty close to having that done. And then chapter 4, which is facility requirements, is now I have that in draft form. I got that this week for my internal review. A lot of the facility requirements, of course, are driven by the aviation forecast chapter preceding it, which is not complete yet. And also will be driven by what's called a technical memorandum that our consultants are putting together right now as it relates to runway 1634. So the consultants are preparing 3 cost estimates for city council consideration in the future. One set of costs associated with keeping the runway open. One set of costs and feasibility for shortening the runway, keeping it in service, and then costs associated with closing the runway and then having to build new infrastructure to service the one remaining runway. When that technical memorandum is complete, we'll be reviewing that internally, visiting with city council, and ultimately the decision on the future of the airport's infrastructure will be city council policy decision. It sounds like we'll be having those discussions after the first of the year. And as I mentioned previously, it is a very public process, so everyone will have time to provide input. On that note, the second planning advisory committee meeting, which we expected to happen in the fall, will likely now be in the winter months, just so that we have chapters 3 and 4 and the technical memorandum to talk about. And then, of course, a broader discussion about the future infrastructure needs. So I expect that, and I think there are a couple people in the room that are on the planning advisory committee.
I had it on my list of questions to ask
Okay.
about it because I haven't heard anything from these.
Yeah, and so the consultants are sending out an updated summary of kind of where they are, a better version of what I just gave you, because it has been some time since the first planning advisory committee meeting in May. But a lot of that's just waiting on FAA launching air service and then completing this technical memorandum, which is pretty complex when you're talking about whether to keep or close a runway. So that's it with the master plan update. Commercial air service, everyone is likely aware that Vela Airlines formally launched nonstop service twice a week to both Las Vegas and Burbank on October 5th and 6th. respectively. We're hearing, I don't have any statistics yet from the airline, but the passenger loads are very good. Most flights are either full or nearly full, particularly to and from Burbank. Currently, both flights operate Thursday, Sunday, so we have a morning Las Vegas flight and an evening Burbank flight, and they've also added 5 Tuesday flights through the holiday period to accommodate holiday traffic. So that starts this coming Tuesday through, I think, the 2nd of January. In terms of terminal improvements, for the most part, we're done with the terminal improvements. There's some sort of punch list items we need to finish. One of them will be flooring in the terminal, but it didn't make sense to disrupt airline operations in the winter months to put in a new floor that then just going to get tracked with water and mud and everything. So we'll do the flooring likely in the spring, and some other just punch list items. Sounds like we are going to get a baggage screening machine from the TSA. We had a meeting with them this morning, so our baggage screening room will be updated, and that sounds like it'll happen after the first of the year as well. So there's still some work to be done in there. And then I don't remember if this was discussed in September or not, Mark, so I'm just going to mention it, but the city purchased the former Hertz car sales property here north of the airport. So we own that property now. And so what we're calling the second phase is the interconnectedness of the two properties and what's going to go where. Do we move airport staff, or do we move rental car facilities over there? What other uses besides the obvious, which is parking, when that time comes and we need the additional parking? So we're working on some of that now with our local architect, CB2, who also did the terminal improvement design work, and possibly also leasing to some external entities if there's still space available. So those are kind of the big near-term items. I'll turn it over to Aaron for the airport security related stuff so that you can hear from somebody besides me.
Oh, you have a hand raised.
Oh, Councilor Nishioka, thank you.
Yes, thank you, John. I wanted to ask you a question. I'm on the legislative committee, and we are meeting again this Friday. And we will be discussing not only things we want to move forward with our lobbyists for the state legislature, but also federal Congress. And the feds are definitely offering a lot of transportation grants. And I wasn't sure if you had looked into that for the runway. And I'm interested in whatever you'd like me to ask in our legislative meeting, how we can support the airport, whether it be the runway or something else, so that it's on the radar with our lobbyists.
Okay. Yeah, so I can certainly respond offline rather than trying to just wing it here. But I think in the short version is that we've talked about this previously, is that the other runway is no longer eligible for standard federal funding, the Airport Improvement Program funding. If there were to be support for that runway in an additional form of funding, then certainly I think we would be interested in that if it's enough to keep it open and keep it operational. So that would certainly be an ask. As I'm just sort of thinking through your question, any airport support from both the state legislature and the federal government is always welcome, regardless of what its use may be for. So if there's beyond the runway, I mean, certainly, you and we've talked about the terminal and the expansion and growth of commercial service and all of that. The runway will be a little bit trickier just because it's not typically, or at least technically, eligible today. And I think that's worth a discussion to have. If the city decides through this technical memorandum and all of its internal conversations that the runway is too expensive to keep open for the long term, are there any other funding sources, state and or federal, local, county, what other resources there may be besides raising rents at the airport, which is not a popular topic of conversation. So yeah, it'd be great if you could take that message forward.
And also I was thinking in terms of emergency flights needed, like whatever they might be discussing in some of their transportation.
Oh, sure.
The idea of using the runway for emergencies. So I just want
Yeah, so emergency preparedness, resiliency type projects would be great. One that comes to mind that I think we're gonna be asking the state for will be hardening of our primary runway so that we can handle larger cargo aircraft for an emergency. I think the state in its emergency preparedness plan has identified, I wanna say 4 airports in the valley, or at least north, south of Portland down to Medford, that would be critical, moving personnel and material from Eastern Oregon out to the coast. And Salem is one of those key runways. So I think hardening of that runway would be an emergency preparedness resiliency ask that we would, again, that's not something that would be eligible for standard airport improvement program funding. So an alternate resource would be great for that.
So if you want to send me some little bleeps on that, that would be helpful, and we'll be meeting at 11 o'clock on Friday.
Okay, I'll get you some information over tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. If there are any other questions, otherwise I'll turn it over to Aaron. Some security updates.
Yep. So as of October 2nd, the airport is officially federalized. So we're regulated under TSA. We have issued all of our security area badges. So all the badges that allow people to work in the commercial service ramp near the aircraft. And now we are moving out to the larger general aviation population with our air operations area badges. That's going to be a much heavier lift. And technically we are regulated. So the requirement is in place for everyone to have badges as of the 2nd of October. We have a little bit of a grace period in getting those badges. It's a large population, but now we're asking everyone to come in and start getting that process started. We've had a good response so far, but we are going to start speeding up the process or pushing the process to speed up a little bit more now that we're into it. As soon as we determine, or as soon as we're able, access to the airfield will start to be turned off for those that don't have a badge. And that is really dependent on access control into the airport. So forming an access control system around the airfield, around the perimeter. And that leads into security improvement projects. So we're working with FAA funding to get some security improvement projects funded by the FAA, namely access control, perimeter improvements, physical perimeter improvements. So we'll be looking at improving fence line and gates around the airport to increase our security posture, including the Garmin campus, a fence line, either physical or virtual fence line around Garmin. Beginning of the or at the beginning of the year, we're going to start working on hangar security and compliance inspections. So our team will be going around to each individual hangar tenant and inspecting for compliance items and general security, ensuring that everyone is badged, that they have proper security in place to prevent unauthorized access, and then general hangar compliance is being performed as well. And part of that will be updating our contact lists with all of our tenants. So ensuring that we're that we have the most recent up-to-date contact information for them. And that's all I have for security.
I have one question, and I don't know if in the past we've had conversations about hangar tenants who are non-aviation users. Is that coming to the fore as you're doing these inspections, and have there been any changes in?
Do you want to speak to
That is part of what security and compliance will entail.
Okay.
Is compliance with lease terms, lease requirements, and obviously security. We make sure that we know what you're not building or not building in your hangar that could be a threat here at the airport. So we will be kind of coupling all of those together. And one of the things we're trying to do now is take our current hangar inspection form and kind of our contact list and adding the security related items and trying to sort of capture everything at one time, at least one time per year. So we always have updated tail numbers, updated contact information. We've inspected your hangar. We're making sure that your use is compliant. If not, we're gonna find somebody that will use their hangar in compliance with the lease, i.e. aviation uses. So that will be part of it. We've made actually quite a bit of headway this year, kind of preparing for the security posture changes, and knowing that there were some tenants that weren't compliant. So we've already made quite a bit of progress. I think we're going to be able to clean that up pretty well in 2024, particularly now that we have additional staff. And I think by then, all of the kind of the dust or the snow globe will have settled on commercial flights, and will be should be smooth sailing by then. So a lot more time to start focusing on some of those other projects. Yep, security and compliance inspections. Spread the word.
All right.
Coming in 24.
Let's see, I had one other question about that master plan schedule. I know back when the presentations we got back in May, there was, a meeting of the planning advisory committee, and then there was also a public meeting that was scheduled. And is that still in winter timeframe, or is that pushed out further? Or
That'll be part of the summary update that the consultants should be sending out here any day now. They'll have an updated schedule with when we expect the next PAC meetings and public meetings and city council visits. So that's likely to shift a little bit. I don't have any exact dates, just based on when the FAA and some of the other things we need to get done are done first. But those will probably shift out 2 or 3 months, I would guess. So likely the entire master plan process, which we expected to be done by May or June, maybe later in the summer, just depending on how quickly the rest of it goes. And of course, at some point, the consultants can't go any further in alternatives development, i.e. what the airfield is going to look like in the next 20 years until city council makes a policy decision on one of the runways. And so there's going to have to be some decision points made before they can go too much further. So we'll move those along as quickly as we can, but we're subject to the availability of the city council and other items and issues that they're working on. So it's going to be a little bit flexible, but we'll keep everybody informed. So I did ask them to put out a summary. It should go out to the PAC here in the next few days or before the end of the month anyway.
May I ask a question? It's old business. We were expecting some pretty substantial business building up at the north end. Is that progressing?
It is. There hasn't been any actual development yet. They're still working with their architects on what the buildings and everything will look like. But if you make it metal innovations, but their signage is up on the hangar and also around the fuel farm.
Okay.
They've been working with us. We did some tree removal for them over the summer. So there's some smaller things that are happening that aren't necessarily visible. The signage is there and it looks really, really good. So they're going to be moving into the existing hangar a little bit at a time as they're working through their development plans.
And flight wing went up with them.
Flight wing is actually in the old Make Trucking hangar.
Oh, okay.
We're just north of the terminal, and they're sharing hangar space with a company called Avid Avionics. So one of the non-compliant uses was storage of vehicles and toys in that big hangar, and now there's actually 2 aviation companies
That's great.
co-located in there. Flight Wing decided to shrink their presence on the airport and just kind of do a couple of projects at a time.
Great.
So I think eventually now we'll see something else happening in the old Flight Wing hangar. Which
I can imagine that's a good spot. Yeah.
It's a lot of moving pieces at the moment.
Good.
That is all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless there's any other questions from anyone.
Any questions from
Chris, maybe has a hand up?
Yeah, I had one question for John. I was just curious what can you speak to the parking? How we're doing on capacity? I know that you talked about just purchasing the Hertz, but how's the current status of the parking going with the air service?
Yeah, right now we're at about 25 to 30%. Some of the flights closer to 40%. It's more congested now because the flights are all Thursday, Sunday, whereas originally we had 4 days a week. But we're still only probably at about a third capacity, so we're not there yet. Certainly, it'll take some either additional frequency or additional destinations. One of the things we've talked to the airline about and the local marketing group is marketing further outside of Salem to coastal communities and communities up the canyon and north to McMinnville and Wilsonville, places like that, because those folks are more likely to come here and park then be dropped off. It's really convenient in the city of Salem to drop someone off and pick them up. And so we think that's probably part of it. We did have a higher parking rate when we first started. We've since brought that down, $15 a day to $10 a day to try and encourage more parking. So we don't have the need yet. One of the things though in our security posture is that if we end up with a federal threat level of imminent, we cannot park within 300 feet of this terminal. And that's all of our parking. So the Hertz parking lot will be the only parking we'll have at that point. So there's a backup there too, which we didn't have prior when we developed our program. So in fact, we have to go back and now make changes to our security program to show that as an option. But in terms of just day-to-day parking, you'll see it's fairly busy on Thursdays and Sundays, and then kind of during the week, it's a little less so.
Very good, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for John or Aaron
Mark,
or Mark? Yeah.
any public works updates while we're here and some airport meeting?
Working to get we just installed a new lavatory cart receptacle down there by the aviation center. And we will be replacing the sewer line that serves the flight deck and in that area of the airport. So we've cleaned that pipe so often you can see the rebar in the pipe. So it's time to replace. But other than that, just here to help Public Works is here to help the airport succeed.
Been great. We're actually at the cusp of winter operations and that sort of thing too. So part of Public Works, when we're talking about airport winter operations as well. So that's happening.
Excuse me, there was and probably falls in the category of rumor, but that Avella was considering a couple other destinations after the first of the year. And I know they don't confirm that until it's gonna happen, but do you have a sense that that's still in the works, that they're looking at it anyway?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, what I've heard is that they've been happy with the load factors that are coming to and from Salem, and so that's encouraging for them to consider other markets. Yeah, they haven't named any specific cities. I can say that they were looking at one of the Bay Area airports back in the spring when there was a chance that we might be ready by either Memorial Day or 4th of July. So my expectation is they'll look at a Bay Area destination this spring. They've talked about Phoenix. They're doing really well to Palm Springs out of Eugene, so it wouldn't surprise me to see that route show up here. So there's a lot of potentials. What I tell people is that we take a lot of notes as we get people calling, asking about certain destinations. We try to log those and we pass those on to the airline. Airlines like to hear from their passengers on where you want to go. If they kind of hear a consistent message to a certain destination, they'll take a larger look at that. I also think there's some strategy in there potentially blocking out other low-cost carrier competition by plucking cities early on before somebody else comes in and grabs them. So yeah, nothing confirmed yet. I don't have any dates or anything other than just sort of broad discussions, but they're happening.
That's good.
John, we had heard that Avella and some of the other airlines in a similar situation are having trouble purchasing aircraft. There's just not a lot of 737, 700s, 800s around, right? So they can't really expand their fleet till I guess more 737 Maxes are made or whatever. So
yeah, they got delayed. So Boeing's Max issue that they had delayed delivery of a lot of aircraft to airlines worldwide, which then those fleets would come available as surplus for airlines like Avella to purchase those 737. So they indicated they're about 5 aircraft behind where they'd like to be. That when they start getting some of these aircraft from like Southwest and Azul and some of the other airlines that fly 737s, they'll be looking to grow more quickly. They have one of the 5 that they expected to have by now. So that's been part of their delay. Breeze Airways, who talked to us even before Avella, they had a similar issue. They fly Airbus A220s, and they were just, as supply chain issues kept the aircraft from coming off the line fast enough, so they just had to pause their expansion plan. So, I mean, I feel like at some point a lot of this will get worked out, and potentially we can have multiple air carriers and other destinations. So we're optimistic. I mean, Aaron and I have been doing this a long time, and I'm a lot longer than him, youngin. But what we've seen is not necessarily a ramp up to a certain level level. We actually started at a really strong level and we've maintained that pace, and that's really a good sign.
Yeah.
So we're very optimistic about what we're seeing in the first 6 weeks and what we're hearing from the airline. They're happy with Salem. They're happy with working with us and with the community's excitement around air service. So I think that all bodes well.
Yeah.
Put me down for a Salem to Eagle, Colorado during ski season.
They fly to Colorado Springs now, so on their route map, I've noticed that their dots, they have an East Coast network and a West Coast network, and mostly fly north-south on both, but they're starting to make their way east. So it wouldn't surprise me at some point. And I asked the question directly, and they said, we're not having those discussions yet, but that doesn't mean we won't start connecting dots east-west at some point. And so they're already in Dubuque, Iowa, Colorado Springs, Colorado, Brownsville, Texas. So
Montana.
they're moving, Kalispell, Montana. So they're moving pretty quickly.
Out there, yeah.
They're really taking advantage of the inability of some other air carriers to grow as quickly as they want. So.
Yeah, the hub system's not great for little towns.
Right.
Okay, all right. If there's no other questions, I guess we can move on to the next agenda item. We had no action items that I'm aware of for this week, so the last thing I would, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I forgot to mention, we were gonna talk about I know that the commission in September had asked for an update about public information and
Right.
communications and things. We weren't able to put that together for tonight's meeting. Sure, that was probably good because we don't have everybody here. So we are scheduling that for the January meeting. Trevor Smith from Public Works, Public Information Office will be here to talk about those things and what he's doing with our website and those sorts of things.
Awesome. I know Arnaud specifically wanted
Specifically
to
wanted that.
wanted that, so it'll be good that it's done when he's here. Let's see. So I guess the last item would be items for commission discussion. The only thing I wanted to point out is in our January 17th meeting, we'll be nominating and electing new officers, so chair and vice chair positions. Just for folks on the line, commissioners aren't supposed to self-nominate, so if you're interested in tossing your hat into the ring, make sure you talk to at least one other commissioner so they can nominate you. And just as a personal note, I'm happy to serve as chair for another term, but this is my second term as on the AAC and it expires at the end of 2024. So I'm also willing to step aside for another person to kind of serve in the role if they're interested. If there's any questions about what's involved in either role, you can ask myself or John. I'd be happy to fill you in. And that's all I had. Are there any other questions? Anything else folks would like to discuss? All right, seeing as there's nothing else, I think we can adjourn the meeting for this evening. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving, and we won't see you until the new year, so happy holidays as well.
Yep. To everyone as well. Happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks for the live stream. Thanks. Thank you, Counselor. Thanks, Chris.
Did you hit any?
Well, I'm trying.
Oh,
Yeah, it gets blocked by the chair, so the computer's behind the screen.
Oh,
so
I see.
Yeah, it just likes to be difficult. That's all.
As soon as I find out.
Just likes to be difficult.